Thank you very much, everyone. We have Ben Jones here in at EquityX. He's our chairman, and he's the visionary behind all the story that we're going to be telling up to now. So, Ben, thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Um, I would ask you a question, and I would you to be very explicit in your answer. So, can you tell me about the origins of EquityX, how this started, how all this dream started?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, thanks for having me today. Excited to be here. A Equity X is a really interesting kind of background. I came from a background in technology, kind of building technology companies, and there's this call I got from my dad a couple of years ago, and he goes, I'm shutting down this business, right? And it was kind of strange to me, and that was kind of his first take on it, shutting down this business and what's going on. And he didn't have a plan. Like, he had no plan. I've got 8 siblings. He'd been around for 30 years, raised all 9 of us on it. And the business was a really stable business that drilled water wells, kind of in West Texas Panhandle. Great business. It's what we call niche. He just called it like a way to survive. And and so he decided to shut down his business, but instead of shutting down, he ended up kind of selling it for scraps, right? This business has been around a long time, and it brought literally life and water to a lot of people and life to us and food to our table. He just didn't have any plan for it. And for me, that was like this, at the time, I didn't really think about it. It was sad to see. Um, but I knew it was a problem, right? I didn't think about what the problem of that. And then another event kind of occurred, just stories with another co-founder in the company, whose dad had a similar story where he didn't have kind of a succession plan. And again, I didn't really know what succession was at this point. I knew it was like parents who just gave up on their business. And so that was kind of the origin of it, I guess, was something that really had an impact on me kind of personally and deeply, just seeing what my dad did. My dad still, he didn't have a retirement plan, so he's having to go off and do something else because he didn't have that. Like, what do I do with my company? What are the financial impact of it? So that was the beginning journey of it.
Well, that's very interesting, and that's mainly the point from what all our team has jumped on this venture, right? So after all this story, what happened with that business? What happened with that original business that your family had?
Yeah, so my dad kind of split it off between two of my brothers. I think he sold it maybe for $100,000, right? For this business is probably worth, it's in the millions, right? Sold it for $100,000. He's like, I'm just going to give it to my kids. My brothers didn't really want it, but I think they kind of had that part of them that wanted to kind of take on the legacy, I guess, if you will. But it still doesn't fulfill the need. Like, succession wasn't there. It was just like, here it is, kids. Here's take over the business. You're the next ones in line. And I think that's an issue you see kind of in most people kind of my age, maybe the 40s, 30s, kind of millennials, the generation behind us. It's like we don't, and maybe even our parents, like their dreams weren't our parents' dreams, and our dreams aren't our parents' dreams, and they're never going to be. And sometimes you just do it because you have this, you need to do it inside of you, but it's not something you really want to do, I guess, right? So that's where the business is. One of them's been transitioned to somebody completely different. Family's no longer involved in one of those side of the business. My brother still has.
And understanding that point, what is the initial motivation behind creating EquityX? What do you really want to accomplish in terms of creating this company?
Yeah, so I think taking this on kind of a macro scale, you think about, okay, if this is a problem with my dad, how big is this? Well, if you look at kind of statistics, right, on this, average age of a business owner in the U.S. is, in their 60s, right? Like, 60s is retirement age. That's the age you're supposed to go off and retire. 70% of all business owners fit that category. Average age of a business owner is in their 70s in Japan, right? I know it's a different dynamic. Average age of a business owner in Mexico is in their 60s, and almost 90% of businesses or small business. So, for me, this wasn't, it was like, it wasn't about the opportunity of like, how do you capitalize on it? It's like, what happens to not just the businesses, but the people that are inside of these businesses, right? And so that's the problem we aim to solve is like, how do we how do we keep these businesses around forever? Because again, it goes back to the initial problem. Like businesses don't have a succession plan because kids don't want it. It's not going to sell for because they didn't plan it. It's not going to sell for a lot of money, or they got to shut it down, and those just aren't really good solutions.
Okay, yes, and so understanding that point and the realities that we're facing a succession crisis, and that the statistics of those not only in North America but in the world are huge. And you just spoke about the purpose behind um, the entire company and our vision. I would like to understand, um, how would you like Equity X to be remembered, or how do you would like Equity X to be positioned?
Yeah, I think for us, I think what we want to do is, there's obviously a business model behind this of we want to go out and change the dynamic through which business succession exists, right? So, kind of give you a brief on it is EquityX, and you know this, but EquityX goes in, buys a company, and makes it into an employee-owned company. So go in, buy 100% of the company, give day one, we give 10% back to employees, and then over 20 years, we give the company back to employees through revenue generated, profits generated in the company. And the reason why we do that is it's really like, okay, if the employees are partaking in this, people that have been around for a long time inside this company, one, they get to partake and participate in the upside of the company's sticking around, so they're keeping their job. Two, it's stability for their family. And the last part is with an equity stake in the company, the people that are on the lower paying jobs in the company with equity, that means eventually they're going to get some sort of distribution that allows them maybe to be able to send a kid off to college and bring up the quality of life for them. And that doesn't seem like much, but on a macro scale across the United States, when you got 6 million businesses that fit this category, like that's a huge impact to employees. So what do we want to leave behind? We want to change the way that company succession exists today. Instead of shutting it down or selling for scraps, we want to create a viable option for companies to stick around. That way, communities can still thrive on that, and people can thrive on that, on the foundation of that company being there forever. And with employees staying there, the companies thrive. They get better. They get bigger. They get better. And that's better for the whole entire community.
Okay, from the moment you started to this moment, what type of obstacles or what type of information have you received that you didn't have at the moment? Let's say we have on one side investors, on the other side brokers, owners, which are looking to sell their businesses. But what have you found that has made you change the way you think about this business, or even go further on the way to solve this succession crisis?
Yeah, I think for me, I go back to what I commented on a minute ago. Is like the biggest thing I see as a problem in succession today is education. After many conversations with brokers that are out there, they're like, we've been hearing about this wave of people retiring. Well, they're of retirement age, right? And they've been of retirement age for a while. And the reason why the wave hasn't came is because of the lack of education that is given to small business owners. And that's not really an education that their fault. It's because you don't go start a business to go sell it. That's what startups do. That's what venture backed companies do. What they do is they go start a business to provide for their family. And so I think that education is what's missing. And your normal approach is, well, I have to sell it. Well, I don't know how to sell it. And I think why it's interesting what we're doing is that as a business owner, you're more comfortable saying, okay, I don't have to sell it to this guy I don't know, or this company I don't know. it's ending back up with the same guys that have been working along, guys and girls that have been working alongside for the last 15, 20 years, right? And I think that kind of education that goes out to those business owners really allows them to change the mindset of being more comfortable with it, and the probability of succession actually is higher with that. And we hope brokers continue to kind of take that as a trend as well, as opposed to kind of finding the best dollar for the company, because that's not always what the owner wants. Sometimes he just wants the company to stick around, and that's a succession plan, not a financial gain. It's like, I want my company to be here for a long time. I've made my money, but I want my company to be here for a long time. And I think that's not the typical market today, and we hope to change that.
Yes, that I strongly highlight that. Um, can you please describe me the evolution that we have had in EquityX from the moment you came with this idea and this moment that we're in right now?
Yeah, so I'll probably answer a little bit your question there on the last one. Is like, the biggest thing is that there wasn't really a way to go out and attract small businesses kind of at scale, right? Like, go in, evaluate business, a very slow process. You can't do this at a scalable model where you can really start getting that education out, right? Because that takes time. But if you're able to implement processes to be able to uh, facilitate like the education part, like that makes it easier for brokers to start understanding, owners start understanding. So that was something we worked on. And what does that mean? It's like optimization, right? So we went, when we first started the company, kind of on a deal by deal basis, really slow, looking at a single deal, emailing the broker, going in, evaluating the business, right? The stuff that fit our category, which is like 500K to 3 million in EBITDA. It was just a real arduous process. And so what we did is we went out and we kind of built a system that allows us to look at all the businesses that are available out there, right? Contact brokers kind of automatically, come in, do a SWOT analysis on a company, or five forces, come and say, does this company kind of align with us? And if it does, it allows us to have way more quality conversations with brokers about what our business model is, what we're trying to achieve, and they're able to kind of tell that to the selling company. So we went from looking at a couple deals a week to looking at 50, 100 deals a week or more, and really pumping through those, allowing us to kind of spread the word about that faster, right? And putting more companies under LOI. So right now we've got 2 companies under LOI, and just with the ability to kind of automate our process has really allowed us to go from figuring out who to buy to figuring out, how can we buy this many companies, because it's so automized at this point.
Perfect. And um, what what are those types of initiatives that, or types of industries, or even acquisition criteria that we are looking in EquityX? How can you describe that?
Yeah, so I mean, the financial side is 5 million. Or, I'm sorry, for 500K to 3 million in EBITDA. Companies that have been around 15 plus years, so they've really got some validity in market. They've been around. They've made relationships. They've built a customer base. They've got long-term employees. So it's those we tend to stay away from kind of the restaurant space. Not that we don't like it. It's just it's more complex than we want. We want people that have been there for a long time, employees that have been there for a long time. Um, and so that's kind of like on the company side, right? We're pretty agnostic on industry, but I would say services industry, manufacturing are kind of like our favorite, just because the due diligence process tends to be a little bit easier. Um, we're industry agnostic, and then they kind of got some strong management in place. So 2 strong managers in place allows us for that transition to employees relatively easy, because you don't have to put an expert in place. So I'll talk about that. So what we do is, once we buy the company, we put a president in place to kind of operate, and he gets equity in the company. He operates it. He stays at that company, and he kind of plays the role of the head of the company, and he supports the whole entire company, the P&L, management, vision, the whole entire thing. But he's got two strong managers in place that really he can lean on to allow the company to continue to thrive without the owners there.
How do you expect this company to be in 10 years? How do you see EquityX in 10 years?
Like I think for us, we've taken this approach. Like, how do we build this at a scalable model? Not because it's a startup kind of, not the startup venture backside, but it's like this is such a big problem. If you don't solve this, there's going to be a lot of companies shutting down. So our goal is to buy thousands of companies generating $15 billion of wealth back in the pockets, in stock wealth back in the pockets of employees. Right, that's kind of our goal here. So we have huge ambitions on this, but I think we're relatively getting started. We're less than 6 months into this kind of U.S. market, and we realize like there's a huge opportunity that if we are able to kind of execute this correctly, that 10-year vision of billions of dollars of wealth and employees is something that we think is very easy to achieve. Because there's just a lot of companies that are in this spot. There's a lot of presidents that want to go take over, make better lives for their families to be able to take in these positions to run these kind of legacy companies. And there's lots of employees that don't want to lose their jobs and they want to participate in that wealth. So we think it's kind of hard to fail on this.
Um, what potential partnerships would you support to have in EquityX? With which type of companies or with which characteristics of entrepreneurs we would like to have partnerships with?
I think for us, I'll break it down to a couple, right? So we'll talk about presidents, right? Like presidents are a big key to this side, like the people coming in and operating the companies. And what I tend to kind of tell this story on the presidents is that the goal on the president is you think about you get to a certain stage in life, in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, sometimes earlier, right? And you don't want to work the corporate job anymore. What do? You go out and you start a business, you buy a franchise, right? But you're really motivated to go out and do something great for your family. Like that's the people we want. We want the people that come in kind of motivated to kind of take that next step for themselves, for their families, to come in, run these companies, understand like this is kind of this is like your legacy is now running this company until you're ready to retire. So those people coming in and running those companies, we're not really looking for the people that are looking to do the private equity, at 30x IRR and multiples in sales, right? Like these companies are being held where they don't ever have to be sold again. So that's the talent side. The second side of it is kind of the debt, right? So debt's obviously a big piece of this. Debt partners going out and acquire companies, going out and debt deals to be able to partner with banks and financial institutions, kind of get the flywheel as we grow this, because the scale at which it is pretty massive. Go out and scale these the acquisition process of these companies, right? So those are probably two of the categories, and then great talent within EquityX, coming in, operators, M&A people, M&A operators, people to help the presidents finance. Like that's kind of not a necessary need today, but that's another one. And then one that just came to mind is kind of the broker ecosystem, right? So I think brokers, uh, after many conversations, are kind of like waiting for this wave of people. And there's this real interesting thing, like you kind of have to in this space where you have these people that didn't start the business to sell, they started to provide. The education has to be there, right? And so ours is like, how do we partner with brokers to let them know like this is a great model? Not only are you getting the benefit from the upside from the sale of the company, but you're having more people that are coming to you and saying, hey, we want to partner with you because you're doing employee ownership and you're keeping our companies around.
Perfect. And to finish, Ben, what type of advice would you like to give to the business owners who are retiring and that they haven't figured out that we exist? What type of information do you would like to give them? And obviously, not only to the owners, but to the brokers which are looking for some company to acquire them.
Yeah, I think for me, like I think it's kind of a scary process, right? Because you're selling your company, and that's it's like it's like starting your business or getting your first customer or growing or getting your first banking relationship. Like those are all kind of milestones that are scary. But I think partnering with a company like us or doing employee ownership in general is like it's a relatively easy, straightforward model, right? Like you know it ticks the boxes, right? Like I'm getting some financial security because you are selling your company for a multiple. My company is going to stick around and my employees are going to be able to kind of thrive in this environment, this company I built that now has a legacy, right? And you're going to be able to go out in public and see those people at the grocery store and be able to look them in the eye because they're still there at that company, right? So I think that the big deal for me is just letting business owners know like this is it's a scary process, but like the transition process does not have to be, right? Like you walk through it, you contact us, tell us what your needs are, and if it fits our model, we're able to kind of get that process done relatively quickly.
Perfect, Ben. Thank you for your time. Thank you for this experience, and for the owners and the brokers. We're going to leave here an email or a phone number so that you can contact us, and we can arrange a call and get to know us a lot better and do some deals. Thank you very much, and this was it for today.